Welcome to Cambridge Uncovered. My name is Kristina Kehrer and I produce stories for NeighborMedia at CCTV. I have been living in the Wellington-Harrington neighborhood for 26 years. And in most of them, the neighborhood has stayed pretty stable and not much change has happened. But in the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a lot of changes. And that will be the focus of our segment tonight on Cambridge Uncovered. For the first segment of the show tonight, I would like to welcome City Council member and State Representative Tim Toomey, who has
Great to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you. Thanks for saying yes. I appreciate it.
Did I have a choice?
No. So first of all, the show tonight is about Wellington-Harrington. You're actually East Cambridge, but there's something I've lived in the Wellington-Harrington neighborhood since 1990, but I have to tell you, this whole notion of Wellington-Harrington, I never heard of that until the Nextdoor online website, described our neighborhood as Wellington-Harrington. And most of the people I know who grow up in the neighborhood don't refer to it as that. Most people consider it East Cambridge or Inman Square area.
Yeah, a lot of people call it now as Eastern Cambridge from Inman Square down, but clearly from when I was growing up, the East Cambridge started at the tracks. The railroad tracks down to Leechmere was the authentic East Cambridge.
And that's still kind of...
And that's still...
Yeah.
People had T-shirts and sweatshirts made saying that photo of tracks, and the East Cambridge starts at the tracks. So it was always a
That's a
delineation
cool
point.
T-shirt.
Yeah. So it was a point of pride for a lot of people. So, but
everybody
interconnected a lot. I mean, there was a lot of between the two neighborhoods were very close.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of because I live on Windsor Street, so it's not really Inman Square. So there's a little chunk of neighborhood between Inman and East Cambridge. I call it like this little nugget of forgotten area. I mean, and that's basically the heart of Wellington-Harrington.
Was part when Model Cities was involved. The federal government put a lot of money into it was called Model Cities in the 60s and 70s to rehab the houses and things like that.
Is that how Harwell Homes started with that? Now, because the only other time I've really seen the name Wellington-Harrington was in relation to the Harwell Homes when they had a neighborhood group that they were fighting for their rights, or I can't remember what was going on. But
Model Cities was very active. That was when Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House and Congress, and there was a lot of federal money, unlike today, that assisted cities. So a lot of it went to removal of old gas stations and the junkyards, rehabbing the properties. People were able to get low interest loans to fix their properties, and it cleaned up a lot of the not undesirable, but different type of uses, like I said, junkyards, things like that. And
also
behind Maury, here's where Howland Homes. That was, I believe, a junkyard back then.
Right, and
West Ave used to go right through, but now it's cut off. Yeah.
Right, and there was a school called the
Wellington-Harrington School. There were many schools, right?
Which was in the Harwell Homes area.
Where the Harwell Homes is now was the Wellington School.
Yeah, but it's surprising. Do you think it's that Nextdoor site that kind of reclaimed this Wellington-Harrington name? I mean,
I'm not sure. I think people always refer to it as Wellington-Harrington.
Really? Did they?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I surprise a lot of people when I tell them that their neighborhood is called Wellington-Harrington.
Yeah.
But the interesting things about the Harwell Homes fight back in the 70s, if you go study up the history of that, the one thing you're going to find out in Cambridge is the more things change, the more they stay the same, because that whole thing was a housing battle. I mean, they were fighting for affordable housing back then.
Well, that's when rent control came in. Because of, I think that was probably the late 60s, I think, when rent control first came, because of the skyrocketing rents and everything. So, but the Harwell Homes, it's affordable for, and everyone that lives there grew up in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's very stable.
It's stable and it's long-term, people know that.
It's wonderful. I'm very happy. I live across the street from it, and I'm very happy to do that. So we're talking about, you're East Cambridge, Wellington-Harrington. I mean, we're all kind of like this, Wellington. And you grew up in East Cambridge.
I did
so
out on next street. Yeah, my favorite.
the one thing I could say about the neighborhood since I lived there in 1990, you know, up until the last 5 to 7 years, change was very slow in that neighborhood. Was it always like that? I mean, it seemed like when I moved in 1990, it stayed.
It was stable.
It was stable.
Right.
It's just been within the last 5 to 7 years that, I mean, Inman Square, I mean, the same stores were there forever, and now it's like...
All new type of restaurants and things like that. And I guess as things change, I mean, the big impetus for the change clearly was what's happening in Kendall Square.
Right.
When I grew up in Kendall Square, the only thing in Kendall Square was the F&T Diner and Vinny's Sub Store. And, you know, Vinny Pacelli owned it. He lived up on. He was my neighbor. Those were the only places to eat in Kendall Square.
Yeah.
Now you have all these new restaurants, new housing, new life sciences. So when we were growing, you know, in the Wellington-Harrington, East Cambridge neighborhood, all around was factories, the candy factories, Squires. So people basically walked to work and went home for lunch, and hardly ever used a car because on Cambridge Street and on every corner there was a little, not a supermarket, but it was a small convenience store for people where you could get the butcher had the meat, the Renner's Meat Market on Cambridge Street, which is
when I moved
Angelo's,
in
hair salon
1990, there was still a lot. Like, remember, was it like the Atomic Super?
Right on next to
the giant.
Yeah, the Atomic. Yeah.
I mean, it was beautiful. There was, I mean, that's the
Fruit
interest.
stands. There was all kinds of bakeries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to say. I mean, we could talk forever on this,
Talk
but
on
that.
this subject.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because there's so many issues in that. I mean, just the whole, as Cambridge goes, so does the nation. I guess the whole manufacturing, the loss of manufacturing, which I think is the bottom line of why the change in our neighborhood,
Right.
and from everything from the prices to the type of people who live there, and the I mean, we're gonna see like here.
Well,
yeah.
before was they were all large families and all were in small
Yes.
apartments. So you know, I believe I was talking to Richie Rossi when he grew up. He grew up in Wellington-Harrington, and I think the population in Cambridge was 125,000. So every household had about 5 kids. The people moving in today either single or if maybe one child. So you see the big demographic, you know, change in the number of young people. As you said, we had the Gannett School, the Kelly School, the Wellington School, the Harrington.
Really?
Each parish had their own. Sacred Heart had a grammar and high school. St. Francis had a grammar school. St. Hedwig's had a grammar school. Next door to Immaculate Conception Lithuanian, they had a little grammar school there.
Yes.
So all of, you know, so think how many kids then, you know, were filled, and all those schools were
Well, you know
full.
what's funny about that? There are several schools that have popped up in the neighborhood, but they're all Montessori.
Montessori,
I mean, to
that's a
continue the
different- right.
conversation, so we've gone from manufacturing and these large, you know, neighborhoods filled with families. I mean, it's yet to be seen whether the new people that are moving into Wellington-Harrington are going to really put their roots down and create.
I think I've seen that. I've seen right on Windsor Street a lot of the young families that are there. They have the, you know, every year they have the cookout on Windsor Street to bring people together. So I've seen a lot of engagement from the people that
Yeah.
moved in different areas. You know, went to for the new, I keep counting at the Harrington School, but the King Upper School. For the construction, you know, that's going to be a big thing.
Yeah,
But
we're
there
gonna
were a lot
talk
of young
about that.
parents that were at that.
Well, can I just say, I mean, the one thing that the identity that we will be losing in our neighborhood is the strong Portuguese, Polish, Italian.
Right.
And I was going to ask you, because
Part of that is, I think, some of, you know, when growing up in the city, it's funny, you know, people who grew up in the city, now they want a little green space, so they're moving
Right.
out to Wilmington, Billerick, like that.
right.
People who lived in the suburbs now want to come to the city.
Yes.
So it's kind of a switch.
You know what?
and
Also, this also touches on the pricing of the neighborhood because
pricing is
I know, but
outrageous.
there's two conversations here, and I've had it because you know my neighbors who grew up 3 generations next door to me, they sold their house. Basically, you have this
I know what
thing.
you mean, yeah.
Yeah, you have what you have is some people that's their inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fault them for taking out every penny for their inheritance, especially if they're a large family. It sucks.
Right.
And I think a lot of people understand that in the pricing. What they don't like are the developers, or sort of like the absent, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, every week I get a letter from somebody saying, we'd love to buy your house. So I think a lot of people are getting that. And
I know. Well, speaking of which, did you get this one in the mail? I mean,
I don't remember seeing
okay,
that one.
so I'll tell you just for a laugh. 511 square feet on 2nd Street is it's sold for. The number's so big I can't even say it. 421,000, I think, is it?
Which is what, like a room?
511 square feet. No, wait, am I saying that right? 511 square feet. 400.
It's pretty small.
It's tiny. It's tiny. 585 square feet, 460. I think the really obnoxious one was 920 square feet. Was
If
600,000.
you go down to North Point, and when we were young, we would go on camping trips, and everybody.
Look what street that's on.
I look at my glasses.
It's I can't ever pronounce it right, but it's off the park. Marcella?
Marcella?
Yeah, I'm Marcella.
And those streets, Marcella, Monty, Hardwick, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, was solid Portuguese. Huge families that all lived in those things now. And now those apartments are going for an incredible amount of money.
I know, it just really makes me sad. I mean, I miss the sort of ethnic, depth, depth, because now everybody, it's very gentrified. What though, Tim?
Everybody wants to live in Cambridge now. That's.
I know. What? I was going to ask: has the city council ever thought about putting a number on how many people we allowed to live in the city? Because congestion is becoming.
We went through that with Mass and Main right across the street here. To give more density for that building, to provide 50 affordable housing units in that building. So the only way, there's no more land being built in Cambridge. So whatever's here is here. So the only way to be able to provide more affordable housing is by density, increasing the height of the building. So
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because people feel really
for
crowded.
50 units of, the issue that I deal with every day, and Jason will tell you, is people coming in the office are being priced out and can't afford it, and it's heartbreaking. But that's.
I know, and it really is.
And, these people have been here for a long time, and they're trying to. The city does a good job, but the demand is just so overwhelming.
I mean, we need to have one of those red, like if you go to a club and we're only letting we're only letting a few more people in. All right, so listen, we got to touch on the King Open School of Development before we. As far as I can tell, not much is going on yet. I live one street over.
You'll be seeing a lot in the next 2 weeks, I believe. The demolition is going to be starting soon. They'll be doing the prep work to do that. It's going to be probably a 4-year project.
I know. I mean, they said 2019.
It's not going to be pleasant.
No, it's going to be terrible. But they're saying 2019. I find that hard to believe. That's a very ambitious date.
Yeah,
September
I'd say probably
2019.
2020, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a few quick questions.
Yep.
They've decided to put the Cambridge Public School Administration.
That's
fine, although I think it was last Thursday, everybody in Cambridge was like, I've never seen so many cars in my whole life. And, that exodus from Kendall through our neighborhood to going west, wherever they're going. I mean, today was a very beautiful day in Cambridge. It felt very quiet. There wasn't gridlock. And I don't even know the rhyme or reason.
That was when the garbage truck caught fire in the Tip O'Neill Tunnel.
Is that what happened?
And then there was another accident on McGrath Highway. It was like,
But
it was
I know sometimes it's something like that, but there's a lot of crosstown traffic.
Right.
Anyway, so.
But it's going to be a beautiful building when it's done. There's going to be new elementary school, new Gold Star Mothers Pool, and the new Valenti Public Library.
Okay, one quick question, because you were going to try and set up buses to shuttle the kids from Wellington-Harrington to pools.
Right, I believe that the city's in process of, finalizing that now. So there will be some type of a shuttle system.
And where will the Little League people play?
Oh, those fields won't be affected right now.
But, okay.
The Frisoli Teen Center is staying open.
Okay.
There's a little.
Frisoli is going to stay open for the whole time?
Yep.
For the whole time?
There won't be back.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, let's leave on a happy note.
So I was
Hey,
just being here is being happy.
All right, Tim, it's
I hope
so
it's been helpful.
lovely to see you,
No, it's
and
good
thank
to
you
see
for
you.
being so ever present in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Well, I'll see you in the neighborhood.
I'll see you in the neighborhood.
In Wellington-Harrington and East Cambridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And for our next segment, we're going to be talking to a local, well, not business owner, but manager of a business, the much beloved Druid in Inman Square, John Blake. So you're the manager?
I am, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
How long have you been at the Druid?
10 years.
Okay, so this is
Yeah.
perfect because, do you live in Inman Square also?
I don't. I live in Teal Square.
Okay. Because the changes in the Inman Square area, they really started about 5-7 years ago. I mean, from when you started, did you hang out at the Druid even before?
No, not really. I think though, like 10 years ago, Inman Square was great. And I think, you know, I liked working there. I liked the people. And it's changed. You can tell like there's more wealth, more money around there. But I think the people, you know, there's still the core of same people, but
I know we can't really, I mean, you're in the business of
Yeah.
serving people, and
Yeah.
we can't really offend people, but
Yeah.
are people of wealth, are they a harder customer?
no,
to
not at all. I
satisfy?
think that maybe I shouldn't have said, well, we just, you know, it's a good class of people. People are friendly, they're nice, they're not demanding. It's, you know, I suppose there has been a lot of changes in 10 years, but it's kind of been the same, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing with
Yeah.
Inman Square. It was really the same
Well,
for
there's-
a very
yeah.
long time, and then all of a sudden you got a lot of fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
Are you guys worried that you're going to have to raise your prices to keep up with all these other fancy restaurants? Because I hope not.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. To be honest, we haven't raised our prices that much in the last 10 years. We've all, you know, we keep it pretty simple, and I think we're, you know, knock on wood, we're consistently busy, but I think a lot of it is because, you know, we have a pretty good product at a reasonable price.
Yes.
You know, that a lot of the, you know, so-called like fancier places, most people aren't able to eat there like twice a week,
Right.
but I think with the Druid, I think they're able to.
No, I mean, I am totally biased in this segment because the Druid is my favorite place to eat in Inman Square because it is affordable and it's simple.
Yeah.
So I always describe going to the Druid as walking into the womb because I always feel nourished and satisfied when I leave there. And I have tried some of the fancy restaurants,
Yeah.
and I always leave hungry, and I never feel satisfied. Like I never
Yeah,
feel,
fulfilled.
and I would really hate for you guys to change on that. But so Inman Square is just a wonderful place to
Yeah,
do business.
I feel like it's never, as much as I've known Cambridge as for, you know, the 10 or 12 years I've been around, like it's always been, I've never felt unsafe anywhere. I've never felt, you know, it's always been
Yeah.
pretty nice.
No,
you
I
know.
feel the same way. So at the Druid, what is your typical clientele there? I mean, who goes
Well,
there?
we get a mix of everything. There's people, you know, people who work in the hospitals. We get a lot of grad students. People, you know, I think what I've noticed in the last 5 or 6 years, there's a lot of young professionals now who work in the city. And before, like, you might have relied more on like students or just locals who lived around there. But I feel now like there's a lot more of people who are like working in the city, and they like living in Inman Square.
And they also live in Inman Square. Do you get a lot of people from other neighborhoods coming to the Druid? Or
Yeah,
would you say you're mostly a neighborhood place?
I just feel that living around like Cambridge or, I don't know, is it okay to say Somerville? But it's such a close proximity.
We're right on the line.
Yeah, so it's not, I feel that it's, Joe, people come from Harvard or Porter Square, Central, you know what I mean? It's pretty close. So I think we get a good mix of.
Well, what I like about the Druid, especially late afternoon, a lot of the people who work, or early evening, a lot of people who work in Inman Square, that used to be their big hangout place. Is that still going on?
Yeah, it's still, you've definitely a different crowd that come in at 5 o'clock than the people who are there at like 7 or 8. I feel like a lot of the people you'd get at 5 or 6 are people, as you said, who just come out of work and they'll be having a drink or something small to eat before they come home. And sorry.
So with Inman Square changing so much, you guys don't feel like you need to change. You're successful.
I just think, you know, over the years we've changed little things here or there, but we found that people like a lot what we do, so instead of trying to copy what other people are doing, we just try to focus on what we do ourselves.
That's funny. So maybe I could ask you, I can't remember exactly what you did to the front windows. Did you take out the front? No, you used to have you made them windows now, right? Is that what you did?
Well,
why'd you guys do that?
Because for the winter it was lovely, because it was like 2 little caves to the right and left of the door. But for the summer, the air ventilation wasn't great.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, we were disappointed, you know, we got plans done up and the owner wasn't sure, now should we do it or should we not? But I think it's helped us a lot in the summer because we're able to open the windows and let the air in. And
does anyone ever complain about the music?
No, very rarely actually. People like it. We don't, you know, we have Irish music on Tuesday evenings and Saturdays during the day, so it's not. So now we have a brand new Irish pub. Yeah.
And I call that place to me feels more masculine. I mean, nothing. You guys, I say the womb for the Druid. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but just like that, it's like
this.
this.
You don't want to come out of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the rising feels kind of like the opposite of that, but in a good way. Like, do you think Inman Square has enough people?
Oh, I definitely do think. I think the rising.
Because there's so many bars in Inman Square. There's drinking everywhere.
Especially in the last 6 or 7 years, it's insane.
How can that?
But I think with all the new people around, I think they all have something different to offer. So I think the rising has been a great addition to Inman Square. You know, it's good. With all you can't expect to have everything yourself, and it's just not the way it works. And I suppose as the city has progressed, obviously, it's always the same, new business is open. Mm-hmm. You know, so you just try to keep up.
Mm-hmm. So you guys are next to a new craft store.
Yeah,
that's very beautiful what they've done, the Gather Here
It's
people.
amazing, and it was really sad to walk by, because you remember the old convenience store, and it was so sad for that family.
I know, it's horribly sad, and I think, I don't know if you know for sure, but I heard Proffel died. Do you know?
Oh, I didn't, that's terrible.
It's a rumor going around, and I think...
He was the nicest man. Do you know, he just worked like a dog.
I know, Inman Square Market, and it was... You know, it was shuttered for a long time after Proffel had a stroke, but I think he finally died. Yeah, but...
Oh, no. At least, hopefully, because I know health-wise it hadn't been great for him for the last couple of years, so just hopefully he might be better off.
Yeah. No. Well, anyway, I mean, I guess I hate to end on that sad note, but I guess I'll bring it back up with saying that I love the Druid.
I'm glad you love it.
The one thing that I love about the Druid is that through all these changes going on in Inman Square, it's like, okay, there's the Druid, there's the coffee house, there's the Druid, yay. So, John Blake, best waiter in all of Boston, in my opinion. Thanks for coming in.
I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Okay. Oh, yes, you will.
Perfect.
See you later. Thank you. For my next segment, we're going to talk to Renee McLeod, who is a local business owner and a resident of the Inman Square area. Renee, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Kristina.
Hi. And she's also my friend, so this should go pretty easily. Well, we'll see. All right, so Renee, you have lived in Inman Square for a very long time.
I've been here for 25 years.
Yes, so you've seen all the changes.
I've seen a lot of changes here,
First, as a resident, I would ask you, so my contention kind of is that Inman Square, up until the last 5 to 7 years, had stayed relatively stable. Kind of, change did not come quickly to Inman Square. And that was kind of one of the joys of it, wouldn't you say, or would you say?
That was one of the most beautiful things about it, is that I knew all my neighbors, and then real estate changed.
Right.
And then a lot of the triple deckers and houses that weren't single family turned into condos. that changed a lot of Inman Square and the whole neighborhood.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember there used to be a saying about Cambridge, no matter where you went, you'd always see a familiar face. Like, you know, you would just see the same faces over and over, you know, and whether you liked them or not, it was still a lovely and familiar feeling.
I actually still find that. I mean, I don't find it as much. I used
Yeah.
to be able to walk out the door and see someone I knew every day, but it happens less frequently, but it still happens. I still feel like it's a warm little neighborhood.
Well, I found even at CCTV, I mean, the 6 degrees of separation in Cambridge still exists. I mean, there's some kids who work here that I kind of know their parents through some other friend, you know, just like we're like, wait, I know, you know. So it is amazing. I mean, that's the most wonderful thing about Cambridge is it used to be, I guess the jury's out if it used to be a city, but it was manageable, and there was a bit of peacefulness you could find in it. We are starting to get quite a hustle and bustle, I would say.
Well, it's a growing city, and people want to come here, and the tech boom happened, and suddenly, you know, everybody wants to work at the tech companies, and they all need housing, and none of them are from here, so they end up having to buy all these condos.
So it's an interesting dichotomy for you because you're a resident, so you have to go through these growing changes, but you're also a business owner. Renee owns Tupelo on Cambridge Street, and she also owns all of the Petsi Pies, 3, I was gonna say branches, but it's not, what do you call them?
Bakeries and cafes.
3 bakeries and cafes. So it must be interesting because if you're a business owner in Cambridge, more is better when it comes to people, and right or no?
More is definitely better when it comes to people, but personally, because of where I live in a small house behind a bunch of triple deckers that have all turned into condos. And it used to be, we used to not have fences at between some of our properties, and when the condos happened, the fences went up. And the people who live in the condos, I don't know them anymore. So my neighborhood really, really changed.
I know.
But I have a couple of neighbors that I can count on to stay.
Right.
And we hang on to each other. But we all remember the day when we could share a lawnmower, a snow blower, and people would look out for you. And it was a very nice small town feel.
Renee, I really do wonder, because I don't want to be cynical. I mean, I am cynical, but I don't want to be cynical. Do you think the jury's out on whether or not these new people who have taken over Cambridge will be of the neighborly sort and community sort? I mean, I know they're community oriented because of such things as the next door, like online bulletin board thing.
Well, they're a different sort of connected. I think that theirs has a lot more to do with social media, and they know each other that way. And they're forming their relationships through people who share their interest in whatever tech company they work for or whatever field they're in. I don't find as much people care about each other just because they happen to live in the same space.
Right.
But I think that thing, what did you call
Next
it?
door?
Next door has been really helpful, and that thing where people borrow things from each other has been nice. But it doesn't feel the same.
No, it does. I mean, I'm going to try and give them a chance, but you're right, I'm not feeling it.
Well, the other thing is it's a generation gap. I mean, they're all younger, and they're going to form their own community.
I was just going to say, are we sitting here sounding like 2 old ladies?
We are, but but I think that they're going to form their own community, and it'll be very different from the one that we're used to.
How do you like them as customers?
I love that none of them cook.
Oh,
It's wonderful.
excellent.
I mean, you know, there are people who cook, but they cook on special occasions,
Oh.
and they cook on holidays and events. But some of them count on me for their breakfast every day, which is wonderful.
That really answers the question I really had about Inman Square, since we have nothing but restaurants and a crafts shop and now several liquor stores. But I was wondering how we would be able to, how all these places would survive. They all seem to be doing the same thing, you know, fancy, expensive food and fancy beer, you know.
They would argue that I think that they're expensive. I don't think that places like the Rising think that they're expensive.
Right. You know what, I didn't think they were either, and then I really kind of studied the menu, and I was like, this might, well, you know what I did? I studied my receipt. I was like, I didn't think it was expensive while I was in there eating. And then
Well, there's the other thing is It costs more to run a business in Cambridge. It costs
Does
more
it?
now. People cost more. Supplies cost more.
What's costing more for small businesses?
Every
What's
single
the
thing.
Every
Taxes
single
are
thing.
higher. My real estate taxes are higher. My rent goes up a lot.
Yes. Right.
Everything's more expensive. All the food products. I mean, things
Okay.
like the drought and the almonds, and those are expensive. Peaches I can't get. I mean, there's just a lot of, and there's a lot of loss.
So, are you trying to tell me that I really can't blame these restaurants when they give me a tiny bit of food for a large amount of money?
I don't think most restaurants are trying to gouge you. I think that a lot of restaurants are
I feel gouged.
just trying to make a living for themselves and for the people who work for them.
Gosh, I feel like such a mean person now, Renee.
It's not about you being mean. Maybe
I'm going to take back all those negative things I said about the tiny food at the large.
well, there are places that do give you the tiny food, but
Let me ask you this about Inman Square. What are we missing? What do we need?
you know, all I can think of is that the state that Troy Anthony Barbershop is gone, and how sad that was. But
No. And it sits empty
I know.
with this Troy Anthony sign on it.
I think I would love some other kind of business that wasn't food. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we got, you know,
You know, in a way, I miss some of the stuff that Inman Square Market had. Particularly, I was thinking, you know how the post office doesn't open till 10? Inman Square Market used to sell stamps.
yeah.
We don't have stationery, sundries,
Yeah.
but not like a CVS. I don't know. Is that what we need?
You're longing for a time that's past.
I know. And on that sad note, Renee, your businesses are wonderful and thriving, and Petsi Pies is amazing. Tupelo is amazing. So as long as we keep people like you in Inman Square and Cambridge, I think we'll be doing okay.
I'm going to try to
Thanks
stay.
for coming.
You're welcome. That's great.
For our next segment, we are going to talk to Pat Medeiros, who was born and raised in the Wellington neighborhood, Wellington-Harrington neighborhood.
Yes.
Did you call it that when you were a kid?
Yes.
You did? Okay,
Yes.
all right. And Pat, actually, we're gonna talk about sort of a not so exciting subject of
Okay.
the drugs in Cambridge, but you are the founder of an organization called Cambridge Overcomes Addiction.
Yes.
Is that a political action?
No.
Okay.
No.
So do you consider yourself an activist?
No.
Okay. Okay. So what is the goal of Cambridge Overcomes Addiction?
I want the city to understand that we have addiction in the city. And from what I've seen and what I've observed, I mean, even if you walk through Central Square, I call it the roundabout there in Central Square, and you see all these people there. And I feel that the city should do more, like the Cambridge Health Alliance, the Needle Exchange, whoever else is involved with it, because it's very difficult when these people don't get help. And it's their choice if they want help. Some of them can't get out of the darkness they're in. You know, they just can't. For some reason, their body just tells them, you know, the drug keeps calling them and saying, no, don't go that way, come my way. Other ones can get out of addiction. And that's what we'll see tomorrow at my vigil, is that we've got 3-4 speakers coming who have been in recovery for a while. And all their drug choice was heroin.
Okay, so I would like to mention that I just did a video interview of you, and if people want to hear more of your story in depth, why you started Cambridge Overcomes Addiction and what you're doing, you can go to NeighborMedia.org and under that title. Now, today we're focusing on East Cambridge, Wellington-Harrington neighborhood. It's probably because I'm not looking for it. Well, some changes I've seen in Inman Square since the methadone clinic closed,
Right.
I guess. We used to have a contingency of methadone people.
Yes.
We don't anymore.
Right.
Is that simply because the methadone clinic is gone?
Yes, they
from the
moved over to
neighborhood?
Somerville.
So they moved over to Somerville. Okay. So I mean, not that you're a drug czar or anything, but I do have some drug questions that
Right.
when I was thinking of talking to you, everyone's talking about heroin. Do we still have a crack or cocaine
Yes, we
problem in
do.
Cambridge?
Yes, we do. But
Okay.
it's mostly heroin, because heroin now is mixed with fentanyl. And what happens is once they take that heroin and that whatever amount they take, that fentanyl just takes them right out.
Okay. So I remember hearing right before this whole epidemic stuff blew up that you could, at the mall, Cambridge Side Gallery, go down there and get a bag of heroin for $10. In East Cambridge, it used to be known for having a pretty hardcore drug problem.
Right.
As these neighborhoods get gentrified, I mean, do we still have a drug problem in East Cambridge,
Yes.
or is the gentrification actually pushing it out?
No, it's in East Cambridge. It's everywhere. You can go to Central Square and buy heroin. You can buy heroin anywhere in the city of Cambridge, if you know the right connections.
Right. Well, I mean, the one thing that I was thinking about Cambridge and drugs, and in the 80s and 90s, I used to work in restaurants, and everybody who worked in restaurants was on cocaine. I mean, no one was calling it an epidemic. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like we've always had drugs around, right? I mean, the difference nowadays is
Right.
the fentanyl.
Right.
That's the game changer in this.
Right.
But you lived in Roosevelt Tower. You grew up in Roosevelt
Yes.
Towers. In the 80s, when I believe it was a bad situation in Roosevelt, was that what was going on? Drugs?
I think it was
it
drugs.
the crack?
Yes, I think it was more crack than it was heroin.
Yeah. And why is crack not as big as heroin anymore?
I don't know. From what I understand from people who've been in recovery, they told me that they get a better high with heroin than they do with crack. That's what they've told me. And I personally don't know that, but that's what they tell me.
So do you think government intervention of any kind has changed what kind of drugs we're doing in the city? I mean, it is interesting to me, the cycles.
Right,
You know, back in the 60s, they had acid,
right,
whatever.
Right.
I guess the 70s, I guess they just did everything. Then the 80s, notorious for the cocaine. I don't know what the 90s were doing, but now we're to this fentanyl thing.
right.
What do you think is going to happen? What do
Well,
you
I'm
think?
hoping that we'll be able to curb it somehow, stop the drug dealers from coming in and sending it into the country for these dealers to get a hold of it. And hopefully we're going to get people to have enough knowledge to try to get these younger kids not hooked on this stuff, you know.
Do you work with kids at all in Cambridge Overcomes Addiction?
Meaning who have been addicted.
No, the young ones. Do you try and...
The school department in Cambridge won't let you do it.
Okay.
I've tried.
Okay.
I've tried approaching them and saying that I'd like to bring 2 people who have been in recovery with me so that they can explain to and I'm talking grammar school children.
Right.
They're already experimenting with a little bit of maybe pills they found in mother's medicine cabinet. And, you know, and I had a mother that called me the other day, and her little boy was only 10, and he had all the signs of heroin addiction.
A 10-year-old?
10-year-old.
Which park?
Over near York Street. You know,
In
Donnelly
my
Field?
neighborhood?
Yeah.
By Donnelly Field?
Yes, and I told her right away to take him to an
10
emergency
years
room.
old?
Yes. I told him to take him to the emergency room and to talk to his pediatrician right away. Yes, I was shocked myself.
Okay, so yes, that is the Wellington-Harrington neighborhood. Now
Yes.
we
But it's
possibly...
everywhere. It's even in this area here.
What neighborhoods are all the neighborhoods in Cambridge?
I would say yes.
Yeah, even the wealthy ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Pat, tomorrow you have a vigil in front of City Hall, which this will be airing after, but you will have had a vigil for lost loved
Right.
ones, and there's going to be a roundtable of Cambridge officials
Right.
to talk about the epidemic. So we'll just see what happens, and
Right.
we'll touch base with you,
Yeah.
get back and. Hey, do you still love your neighborhood over there?
Yes.
You live in Central Square now,
Yes,
but
and
you
my
left.
sisters still live over there.
Yeah, Harwell Homes, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the area.
I thank God for Harwell Homes because that's stability.
Yes.
It's stability. And working class.
Right.
People you can relate to.
Right. But my vigil is inside City Hall. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
coming down.
Thank you.
And that does it for today's episode of Cambridge Uncovered. I would like to thank my guests, Tim Toomey, John Blake, Pat Medeiros, and Renee McLeod. Thanks for watching.